Good evening and welcome to this week's Sunday Night Live, the show where we bring you all things automotive. We don't just figure on one side of the business, we figure on the entire business. Variable, fixed. If it has to do with automotive, I bring in the experts to share with you why and how they do what they do. And tonight's show is a little bit different. Normally there's me and one other person, but there's a really important conversation that needs to be had. And I figured, why don't I bring the two pieces together? Because in our world, there are two pieces of the puzzle. There are the dealers and there are the vendors. And, it's like the yin and the yang. It's very difficult sometimes. We're all working towards the same end game. It's an important conversation that needs to be had. So somebody's got their speaker on. But somehow we can't make those connections. So tonight, I brought on a couple of A-list players here. We got Steve Apicella on the top middle, although I don't know what it shows up like on your screen. John Frazier, we all know John, and Ed Roberts, and Cesar Augustus. So we all know that when you're at the dealer, there are probably hundreds of people that call on the store. And after a while, it's like sweeping the tide. After a while, you just can't see another person. So part of the problem that we have, I hate to say it, we have to blame on ourselves. But that doesn't mean that we can't overcome some of these things through better understanding. So guys, welcome to the show. Thank you very much for being here. And why don't you each, for the one or two people that might not know who you are, why don't each of you, one at a time, just say a little bit about who you are, background, how you got in the business, not quite back as far as birth, but what inspires you, and we'll go on. So why don't we start with Steve?
Thanks, Paul. Great being here. My name's Steve Apicella. I'm the CEO of Strategic DX. Our solution is called Your Dealer Experience. I started back in the auto industry in 1991 as a service provider, built up a service group of technicians nationwide, and in the year 2001 became exposed to the F&I side of the industry as a service provider, and then transitioned over the next decade into technology because I saw a huge vacancy, the connection between the dealer, the customer, the vendor, and the processes that were completely disconnected. I worked on innovating a solution to connect the disconnected and fulfill digital life cycle after the point of sale, to take all these disconnected parts and make one unified connection between the dealer and their customer.
Awesome, thank you. And John, you're the next one on the right as far as what I could see on the screen.
John Frazier, been in the business since 2006, service director at Paulding Dodge in Dallas, Georgia. And what inspires me is just the sense of accomplishment that can come with this business, in fixed ops especially, just kind of making all the little parts and pieces work.
Awesome. Rounding the bend, we got Ed Roberts.
So I'm Ed Roberts. I've been in the business since 1992. I'm a fixed operations director at a little tiny dealership down here in St. Augustine, Florida, at Mozart Ford Lincoln. And I love to watch people grow beyond what they felt they was capable of.
Yeah.
Cesar Augustus.
Yes, I'm Cesar, CEO of Dealer Scanning. Been in the business, the car business, since the early 2000s, right out of college, down here in South Florida. I worked at JM Lexus. At the time, was the largest Lexus dealership in the world, selling 1,000 cars a month. I was a programmer there, doing some integrations within Reynolds and the homegrown program. But in the last couple of years, last 8 years, we created a system for car dealerships to scan documents, scan repair orders, parts invoices, deal jackets. It's the low-hanging fruit of process at a dealership, and we help dealerships across the country just get those file rooms out of the way and making the process easier and simpler, and just making people happy through our document scanning process.
Awesome. All right, so let's start on the dealer side. So John, Ed, on a given week, how many vendors would you say call on your store, and what are some of the creative ways they try to get in front of you?
John, I'll let you go first.
Total, like from phone calls to in person, on average, I get at least a couple a day. That's either going primarily calls, but between calls, emails, and in person, 2 to 3 a day. And normally phone calls is the way they get to me the quickest. I've got a couple of gatekeepers, and some of them are pretty slick. They know how to get past the gatekeeper. Hey, I had an appointment with him. I need to call and tell him that I got to reschedule. They get real creative with it to get by. Otherwise, I'm pretty exposed here in the service department. So if they're walking into the store, they'll just come right in.
Right.
How about you, Ed?
For me, it's very similar. Same. Probably have 8 or 10 a week that hit me with emails. 8 or 10 a week that call our communication center and they've already done research on us online, or they call and ask who I am or whatever else. So they speak by name. And then probably another 2 a day that show up and just hoping to get a minute with me. And I tell them all the time that I'll be glad to give them all the time in the world if they make an appointment. But if they don't want to make an appointment, no time for them.
Now, the typical service job, I would imagine you start around 7-ish?
Yeah.
We start at 7. We run 7 to 7 in main service and 7 to 9 in quick lane.
And I would imagine there's not a lot of free time. I mean, lunch in the car business is that 5 minutes that you're standing up eating something between 11 and 4.
I am a stickler of following my calendar. So I'll put things on my calendar, whether it's my people, whether it's meetings I have through the day or various different things. And so if you just show up today, you're not on my calendar and I don't have time for you. You're interrupting what's on my calendar. So I will quickly tell you that as well.
And of the vendors that you guys use, are a lot of these like legacy vendors that have been there before you got there? Or how do you explore new opportunities when it's really hard, right?
Well, I have to say, Ed, apparently I'm too nice. I need to get my calendar out a little more often, I guess. But with me, I'm really new at this store, so all my vendors, less one that I just signed up for to manage our rental software, or our rental fleet. All the vendors were already here. But in many cases before at previous stores, I've typically brought in vendors that I had prior experience with. So that's when that option's available to me. I like to go with what works, what I know works.
Yeah. So the prospect of somebody new reaching, just showing up and connecting with you guys is probably somewhat remote.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm there to run my business, and so my day's planned out, and you coming in is interrupted.
So it's Caesar and Steve. Now we're on the other side of the equation, and I'm with you because I'm one of those guys, right? Chasing stuff for months, sometimes years, and just can never. It seems like sometimes you just can't get right in front of the right person, or they may not be interested, just don't know how to say no. What are some of the Caesar? What are some of your interesting stories?
Yeah, we'll be here all night if I told you all my interesting. But we understand from Ed's and John's perspective. We know that you guys are busy, you guys are cranking, and so we understand that. In my case, I got to find a way to first qualify you guys so I'm not wasting your time. So in my case, I'm making sure that if I'm coming into Ed's dealership, I've done my research ahead of time, which might be calling a receptionist or calling a cashier to find out if, in our case, we do document scanning, to find out if they're scanning or not. At that point, I'm old school. If you guys seen the movie The Founder, the McDonald's story, I'm that guy out there with the scanning unit going door to door. That creates a competitive advantage in our end because our competition is not doing that. Obviously, it's more expensive to go out and knock on every door around the United States. But guys like Ed and John if they do need the product, they do appreciate someone that comes in. Even someone like Ed that might be scheduled out. If I know that he needs my product, and I know that my product adds value, I'll come in, ask to see if I can speak to him. No, make an appointment. I leave my information, which is a small flyer. In my flyer, it gives you all the information you need to know about the product. And I've had times where I've gone into meetings, into dealerships, sort of like Ed, where I can't meet with a guy, and I leave a card, and I get a call back in 30 minutes from that guy that was busy, telling me, "Hey, are you still in town? Come back and let's talk." So it's identifying our prospects properly, so that we're not interrupting Ed's or John's. So I know Ed and John, doing prior research, I know that I won't go to their store or even send them emails or call them. For that'll tell me, "Hey, I'm AMSI," or "I am Ed, I'm already scanning." So.
Well, what's interesting about yours is that, part of the discovery that I do, I'll walk into a store and I'll walk into the service department and I'll see the large stack of ROs with the receptionist, or I'll see large stacks of ROs on the service with the service advisors, or a peek in the service manager's office if it's one of those with the glass windows. So you kind of can establish whether or not there's a need. From experience, there's a need generally.
Right.
But when you go in like that, when you got the machine, and like the founder, "Hey, aren't you the copier guy?" No.
Aren't you with CDK? You can fix our printer?
Yeah, no, that wasn't me. But it was him. So, it's kind of cool that way, because when you leave that behind, and they know that they have a problem, right? And you actually took the time to go there and leave some stuff. How about you, Steve?
Yeah, I have a unique, I think, perspective in that I'm a support mechanism technologically for vendors. So, previous to COVID-19, I was the road warrior guy, out on Monday and home on Friday, and land into a particular market where a vendor would pick me up and we would drive to Ed's dealership or John's dealership. And I'm hoping, because I woke up at 3:00 in the morning and jumped on a plane, and I traveled for 3.5 hours before I showed up at Ed's door, that it was going to be a worthwhile visit. And then you pull into the parking lot and the agent or the vendor brings you in the front door, and you see Ed or somebody like him, and he doesn't have a lot of time for you. And he doesn't really know that you just traveled 3 hours to come and see him. But I have an interesting story, because I really respect Ed and John's position. A few years ago, I spent 7 weeks in 7 different dealerships across the country learning, just trying to absorb, and sitting in F&I offices and working on the service lane, sold to the customer as a F&I manager in training or a service advisor in training, purely just to watch the interaction between the dealer and the customer. And the one unanticipated thing that happened to me, which I totally didn't expect, was the onslaught of vendors that came in all the time. I was a guest, and I was kind of annoyed by it, to be frank. It was consistent. And, the disruption that Ed talked about earlier is interesting, because when the guy doesn't get to see Ed or John, then he looks for the next person down the chain. He's looking for anybody to inspire, whether it's an F&I manager, or I've seen people spend time with the receptionist with the hope that they're going to somehow inspire something else to occur. And when you see it through their lens, you understand why that's not the best pursuit. And I understand it better as a vendor, having gone through that experience.
What's interesting is that there are a lot of people that come through the door, but there are not a lot of people that do all of the homework, right? Like, take LinkedIn, for instance. I live on LinkedIn more than I live on Facebook. And one would say I probably live on Facebook more than I should, but I do business with restaurants and other small businesses as well. So that's an important area for me to be in also. So I get requests all the time on LinkedIn, and I look and see if there's any potential value there. and I'll accept the connection if there's a remote possibility of either me being able to help them or them being able to help me. But then I get these messages where clearly they have done no research at all.
Yeah.
So I get, I accept the request. I get the message, hey, I can help you I can help you at your dealership. Well, if you read my profile, you'll know that I don't own a dealership. I don't. But they go on. So I said, you think it might have been maybe worthwhile to do a little research before trying to tag somebody? And the guy proceeds to tell me, well, no, I have this automation platform, and it's great. I could send out 1,000 a day, and it's a numbers game. I said, yeah, but a lot of people that you're sending stuff to, it's just crap. It has no value. Doesn't that kind of diminish your brand? No, because it's a numbers game. Like, all right, dude. All right, I get it. Where I'm going with that in the automotive space is that a lot of times somebody that comes in to call on you guys, Ed and John, they might have been, and no disrespect to this, but they might have been working at a Kinko's last week and know nothing about the car business. They know what you do from a 20-minute training video. I hate to say it, but that's not enough to be able to get in front of somebody that works from 7 in the morning till 7 at night, nonstop, with always people waiting on them. I ran repair shops where I had 6 mechanics, a counter person, a parts driver, and I was nonstop all day. So I can't imagine. How many technicians do you have, Ed, in the shop?
83.
83. And John, you have a smaller store. So how many do you have?
17 total.
17. All day long, somebody's tugging at your shoulder, right?
Yeah, and I think too,
for 5 minutes.
Here, Paul, one of the things, I won't speak for Ed or John, but the way that I see it is when there's such an onslaught and all of this, daily unscheduled interaction, for them it must turn into white noise. That when somebody like Caesar shows up and he has something valuable, and really to show them, he gets in that vortex of the white noise, and the dealer might be missing a very valuable opportunity. This is, and you mentioned it at the top of the show, this automotive community, including the support community, is a really, really valuable attribute for the dealers. And there's new process improvements, and there's new revenue touch points and retention opportunities that some of these very valuable vendors have. But the problem is the white noise. You get stuck in that vortex, and sometimes it's hard to penetrate through.
Yeah, because how do they know which one to let in and not? Because when it's so many every day, just after a while, it's just part of noise. I'd rather not deal with it.
Yeah. And that's been the case for me here, being new here at this store. I'm still trying to hash things out. I'm 3 months in, and I got vendors hitting me up all the time, and they want to show me this demo, and they want to show me these numbers, and they want to stop by and give me their demo, and that's great. But I'm still trying to get processes and get things straight here at ground level on the store. There's no sense in me signing up for a bunch of things that I probably wouldn't use at this time if I don't have my people right or my process right. Caesar, you hit something earlier about talking about the need. In the end of 2016, I kind of checked out of the business for a while, and I wanted to just go do consulting. I was going to be a vendor. I was going to represent a few different products, and I ended up doing that, picked some products that I had used in the past. But for me, it was, I found it very easy to be on the vendor side when marketing to a service director or a fixed ops guy, because I had been in their shoes. And so I knew what their needs were right out of the gate. And I could connect with them in a way that the average vendor couldn't connect. I could talk to them. And I could often, my presentations or my initial meeting with them started about BSing about their day or what they're dealing with or what they're beating their head against. And at some point in our conversation, the guy would look at me and say, what are you here for again? What are we doing? Because it was just, we connected in that way. So, that ultimately took me other places and led me to where I am now. But, I think Paul, like you said, when you got somebody that comes in that completely does not understand our business, nor do they get what we need or have any idea what we need, and it makes it really hard for that transaction to happen.
If I can jump in here just with a thought about that is, when I see somebody like John or Ed and what it takes to run these very process-driven companies and to get to their goals, the last thing they need is a vendor coming in, giving them something divergent, one more thing to do, something different to do. As the support community, we've got to figure out how we enhance what they do now, how we make it better, how we strengthen their connection to their customer, how we create new revenue, and be able to do that in a way that doesn't create more work for them. It's got to do just the opposite. I think as a technological contributor, I look at it all the time where, especially when it comes to a digital implementation of something, how does this work with everything else that I already do? Or is it just another process to do?
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's really important that we have to, as a support community, refine our message to make sure we're truly making a meaningful contribution to their mission. How do we help them increase revenue, create more retention, and to do that with less steps than they're doing right now?
Right, because there's never enough time. And it doesn't matter what store you go in, there will always be some tooling that somebody signed up for that maybe you might not even know you're paying for it until you do an audit of, hey, who's going in and out of my DMS every day?
Yeah. Paul, that happened to me not 2 weeks ago. I was going to sign up for a digital multipoint. Believe it or not, we're still on paper multipoints here. So we were looking at different digital multipoints, and the OEM had a program I was going to use because it was going to be free to me. And so, I mean, I like enrolled in it, launched it. I went through all the setups. The more I got to looking at this particular digital multipoint and how it fits in my process, the more I thought, man, this is really over-engineered. Even the customer side of it was not user-friendly. So I contacted my area rep. I said, forget about it. And I started, we have a texting vendor that we use. And I started talking with them about MPI. And he said, your store enrolled in it some time ago, and the last service manager never took advantage of it, never used it, never put it out. And I'm like, it's very minimal what it's costing me. So that's not even the issue. So I said, hey, well, send me a text. Show me what it looks like. Blew me away how it's outlined for the advisor and the tech and for the customer. I mean, super, super cool program.
Well, that brings up an interesting point because there's so much noise on all sides that sometimes you can't see the forest from the trees, right? On the dealer end of it, there need to be regular audits, especially when there's a change of the guard, as who's coming in and out, what are we paying for, what's the utilization, and either it's got to go or we need training on this. Tell me why we're signed up with you. On the vendor side, you've got to monitor your accounts, right? You need to know what's going on in and out of the store. We know you're busy. So if we know there's a change of the guard, we need to be the ones that say, hey, I know you're new here. I'm not sure if you're aware of it or not, but this is what we do for you. Maybe some performance reports from the previous person that's no longer there. Maybe there's a reason why that person's no longer there. This is what the utilization was. This is what you could be doing. And when can we set up training? Right. So it's a conversation that really should happen on both sides, because when both sides come together on it, that's when everybody wins. And that's when there are less tools in the closet that they're paying for, because a lot of the stuff is, you're under contract for a certain period of time and you're paying for stuff you're not using. So that's, it's a critical conversation to have on both sides of it. It's not just one person's responsibility. It's It's everybody's responsibility. Do you guys find many other than that? So that's one perfect example, John, of something that's available to you through a current vendor that that you weren't utilizing until all of a sudden something came up. Like, why aren't we doing this?
Yeah.
How often do they? And Ed, also, how often do the guys come around and say, "Hey, listen, how often do you hear from your vendors?"
Well, it's and I get it from the vendor standpoint because they're traveling through town and they need to stop by. They made a list of 8 dealers they're going to stop at while they're passing through, and then you tell them when you get there that you didn't make an appointment with me, you don't have time of day. So chances are they're probably not going to make that appointment with you going forward. But ultimately, if they don't, you don't find out all those elements. We all have vendors that we don't have the time that we need to spend with them to find out what all those elements are. Like with John, it's a texting platform, but it's a consumer experience platform as well, because it allows them to be able to sell from it, and it allows them to be able to display what the customer came in for. And most of the guys that sit in our chair, they come in to survive the day. They don't come in to be proactive and make things happen or whatever. They come in to survive the day. So surviving the day is everybody's different definition of what it takes to survive the day, but vendors don't fit into that. I've made it this long without you. I don't need you now. And so you show up there and you get the door shut on you.
Yeah.
You take the time to come in and plan that out a bit. Then I'll give you the time to say, hey, what can you do for my business to enhance it? And if the answer is no, the answer is no. But if the answer is yes, let's figure it out. But more times than not, when the answer is no, it's not yet from the vendor standpoint. Let me dig in deeper so that they rob more time from you. But it just needs to be structured a bit to where you can bring them in. Hey, this is what I need. This is my needs. Here's what I can do to help you. When that happens, then it benefits everybody.
Now, if we're already doing business, you're more likely to take a call from me.
Absolutely.
Right? So if we're already doing business and you're more likely to take a call from me, everything has reporting. So I should be able to know what your utilization is of the particular tool that you're buying from me. And I should also know what best practices are and who in the store is using that stuff. It's not all with you. There are various people that use the products. So if, let's say I put together a discovery checklist, if you will, based on the utilization and the ROI stuff that I can see in a dashboard, I should be able to put together some kind of a discovery where I could, have different touch points in the store. Hey, it's so-and-so from XYZ. Listen, I'm looking at some reporting here. I see that you are only using this much of a particular tool that you've subscribed to. Are you the only, I can ask that person some basic questions to then, when I do reach you, since you're the guy that makes the decision, I can say, hey, listen, I know you're busy. I just want to take a couple of minutes to let you know, I looked at what you're buying, what you're paying for. This is the percentage that you're using. I spoke with this one, and that one. This is what their feedback was. So I see that there's an opportunity here to improve XYZ. I'd like to set up a time with you where we could just go over that, maybe 30 minutes. Would that work for you, Ed?
Absolutely. And when you do that, when you've done the research to find out what helps my business, I'm all about sitting with you. And like with Caesar, with scanning, John mentioned earlier, the store that he's at, he's chasing paperwork. But ultimately, if you can go to the computer and find, if anybody can go to the computer and find anything they need, they don't have to go to a certain file cabinet. It's all right there at your fingertips. That's beneficial to all of us.
Yeah,
a little bit of prep work.
If I can jump into I think this is consistent with both dealers and vendors, is that the best dealers are not trying to sell a car, they're trying to earn a customer.
Right.
Same thing for the best vendors. They're not trying to sell a product. That's not the finish line. They're trying to earn a relationship. And that earn part is not a sales pitch. That's, actual results. and delivering what it was that you sold that allowed you to get into the door, which is the most important part of the relationship for sure.
Exactly. Like you're talking about, Ed and Paul talking about, vendors taking the time to do the research and to reach out to you. I'm almost 4 months in, 3.5 months now here where I'm at. Not one vendor has reached out to me, less my shop supply guys, my guys that bring my wheel weights and my pig mats and my all that stuff. They came in because they're probably making sure I don't look at their invoice to find the next cheapest guy. But none of my fixed ops, customer experience, tools that I use, all the communication I've had with them is because I initiated it. And being on the vendor side, when I was representing some companies, it's always sell. The account management or the fostering that relationship and helping them be better at what they do with your product. That was on the back burner. That was an afterthought because we were always just trying to make the next sell. And the same goes for dealerships. It's just like, it's like they just want to, they can't get the customer out of the finance office quick enough. Hey, let's go so we can sell the next car. The top dealers, the best dealers at what they do aren't necessarily measured by how many cars they sell in a month, but how many relationships they build and how many experiences they create.
Totally agree.
Yeah. And it's ultimately the vendor's responsibility to walk their talk, right? So if we're coming into you and telling you we're delivering value, we're adding value, we're just not making the sale and going away, we understand you guys are busy. So not only are you dealing with customers, you're dealing with employees, you're dealing with techs, service advisors, and then you're dealing with a bunch of vendors coming in every day. But more importantly, you're dealing with a bunch of data. I mean, us 21st century humans are inundated with data, not only business data, but personal data, right? So one thing we do that helps our clients is I just nudge you. I just send you kind of like to what Paul was saying, send a report, not a long report, but saying, hey, last month you scanned, 2 months ago you scanned all your repair orders. Last month you're missing 500 repair orders. Just a quick nudge to get that service manager, fixed up director's attention to say, hey, something's going on. You don't have to go into deep detail. If you want, you can call me. And that, more than not, it just keeps that relationship going. Because in our business, as you guys know, service managers, fixed up directors move around. And that's a huge part of our recurring business is we deliver a good product. John said it. Hey, I worked with these guys in the past. I'm going to work with them again. But that's only done through, walking your talk, man, just delivering value consistently.
You got to earn it.
Sure. And if they see that you're watching the store, relationships are funny at the dealership, right? There are the relationships that you develop with the customers, right? Too many times, 90% of the time, the focus is on selling the car, and hooray, we sold the car, and the car's over the curb. Now what, right? We forget about that customer until 3-4 years later, where we have to reach in our pocket, spend another $633 to bring a new one in, as opposed to fostering the relationship. Well, it's really no different on the vendor side, because it's hard enough to get in front of the people. Once you get in front of them, to John's point, yeah, you've done business with them in the past, come on in. So it's
a great opportunity for our industry is to, together with dealers and vendors, is to solve that customer journey topic. These dealers are the best equipped to take care of those customers during their ownership journey, period. But the industry's retention rate's horrible. And part of that is what you said at the top of the show, when there's 100 vendors in one dealership, everybody's solution was, thought of and deployed and inserted without any consideration on how it works with anything else. This is a huge problem for the dealers because the customer has one possible connection that's going to be successful or not with the dealer. They're not 100 different solutions. So that's the next horizon, is how we unify that process so that customer's journey, just like Amazon. Amazon's not about selling a product one time to a customer. That's not their currency. Amazon's currency is delivering the whole experience before and after the sale that keeps the customer coming back again and again and again and again. That's what we need to do. But again, I think, part of, Paul, what you're doing brilliantly here is this is one journey. The journey that I'm on, I believe, is the same journey Ed's on and the same journey that Caesar's on and John's on. We need to be fighting for the same thing. We need to be collaborating in a way which we clearly know what the dealer needs, and the dealer clearly knows what the vendor is able to deliver, and to make those choices so that we can get to that ultimate retention that the dealer should get.
I don't know what the retention numbers are for Amazon, but I can tell you they're at my house every week without fail. If I need anything, I go online. I've got some choices. I can look it up, see whether or not it fits what my needs are, and I can buy it just like that. I could just buy it, and I know that 2 days later, now with COVID, the 2 days isn't exactly 2 days on all items, but nonetheless, it's easy, right? You can do it right online. It's simple. When you look at the retention numbers at a store, I look at data all the time. When we were looking at sales retention, the store might tell you 85, but when you do an actual study and you plug in the software, you see that it comes up 20%. On the service side, it might be 30% that goes back to the store, but the ones that go back to the same store, on average across the board, because some are better than others and some are worse than others, it's 18%. That's not a lot. So yeah, by having the conversations, by better understanding both sides of it, we might be able to get more face time, and maybe it helps the dealers do a quicker scan, if you will, because you should be able, in most conversations in our business, you can tell within 2 minutes, legitimately, whether or not somebody knows what they're talking about. All right. I get very frustrated because I'm sometimes short on time or patience with tech type stuff when I know the person on the other end of the phone doesn't know, and they're afraid to tell me they don't know. And my wife thinks sometimes I'm a little shorter than I should be, but you know what? I don't have time for BS. I had an issue. I got somebody on the phone. I said, okay, so I asked a question. I get back an answer that to me sounds like a created answer.
Hey, Paul, if I can share, going back to my experience, 7 different car dealerships over 7 weeks when I was in the finance office on the service drive learning. One of the most common responses I heard from the person I was with when a vendor presented to them, other than sarcasm, after the vendor did their presentation, when I asked, what did you think of that presentation? Other than sarcasm, the thing I heard most often is that person doesn't understand my business. And that's a big, big missing link. If we're all fighting for the same thing, we have to be connected in a more organic way to deliver the solutions that the dealer needs, period.
You know what I just realized? I totally blanked on this, because usually there's 2 people on the show, not 5 people on the show. I got a bunch of comments. I had it on the wrong tab. My apologies. Michael Landis says, hello, gentlemen. Tommy Esposito, my brother from New Jersey. Greg Dudley says, hey, all. Aaron Bratster. Hey, guys. Ron Usher, my favorite master tech in the world. Big lineup tonight. Elijah Yap. What's going on, guys? Michael Larkin, our digital guru. This guy knows all things digital. Never go back as far as birth. I'm taking notes. And Frederick Subprime Hero. Hello, everyone. Paul Machine. Paula, great title for tonight. Jeff Daniel, in today's world, empower staff to make decisions that help tremendously. Sandy Zanino. We're always communicating on Facebook, she and I. Says, hey, Paul. Mike Vogel, the coach. Superstar show tonight. Paul bringing out the big guns. You guys are the big guns. That's why you're here. John Fraser. You actually saw this. You should have nudged me that, hey, bonehead, you forgot the comments. There's a first for everything. Mike says, hey, John, Terry Turline, what is your preferred method of a vendor bringing a better mousetrap? Phone, email, referral from an industry peer, etc. What's your preferred method? That's you, Ed, and you, John.
My preferred method is to ask for an appointment, whether it's through a phone call, whether it's through an email. And yes, you're going to get denied that first time because you want to get in there in the next 10 minutes or you want to get there tomorrow. But if you set up an appointment with me, that's my preferred method, is set up an appointment. I will give you the time because there is things that enhance my business, and I know that. And I will give you the time to show that to me. But I want you to do it on my terms, not yours.
John, how about you, man?
Same. I'd just rather an email or a call to schedule a time. I don't prefer at all to just show up.
So email or phone call.
Mm.
Paul Machine says, I've never been a vendor. I'm always a partner. Sandy says, yes, Paul, I get those all the time. And Mike Bogle, Terry Turlian, I would listen to any vendor as long as it was on my preferred time. I do the same with anyone looking for employment. It's important to look at all your options. It's very true because a lot of times you don't get to see what those options are. And Aaron says, as a vendor, how do you make it out of the white noise to make your product worthwhile to the dealer or enough to catch their attention? And I would say, you guys probably concur, Steve and Caesar, do the research, know the pain, so that within the first few words that you say to the dealer or the person at the store that's responsible, they understand that you know what their pain is and you're not just there to chit. Too many times somebody comes in that's new, has no idea, and they'll tell you they're new, but they're willing to learn. Well, guess what?
You know, in the time that you have with John or Ed as a vendor, don't spend time on the expectation. You gotta spend energy on the distinction. How is this going to make anything different? I don't need to tell Ed or John that I'm trying to help them make more money, or they know that. That's why I'm there. But you gotta focus your energy on what distinction you're really going to bring to the dealership.
And they can tell within the first 2 minutes whether or not you bring value or fluff, and nobody has time for fluff.
No doubt.
Scott Ray says, plus every vendor has an ROI no matter what they are selling.
Yeah.
And along with ROI, there's also, as we learned through the Fixed Ops Roundtable from Mr. Brian Benstock, ROL, return on learning. John, you had a very interesting post the other day. I think vendors and partners would probably be afraid to come into your store because it went something like, all right, what do you got? What's the ROI? That's it, rant over.
Yeah, right.
That might be intimidating for some.
For marketing especially, yes.
And that's ultimately our responsibility as a vendor. Is these guys are just so busy with so much information, so many responsibilities. Hey, let's make the offer simple. Let's give as much information as we can that is concise, so that they can take a good look at it in a couple of minutes and then move into the next step. Some of this stuff gets really complex. You want to know the price. Some of these places, some of us vendors, we not us, but other vendors, you have to call in for a quote. It'll take you a month to get a quote. Gets complex. Just keep it simple. If we keep it simple, it gives the dealer, it gives the the guys that are making the decision just more comfortable to follow through.
All right, we're getting caught up on this list here. Again, my apologies. Paul says, John hit the nail on the head. Mark Williamson, ask for an appointment via phone message or email, and when the time is given, be prepared to show value within the first minute of the meeting. If you don't hook them right off the bat, there's no reason for them to stay. I attend lots of meetings, and some of those meetings, within the first few minutes, I know that I'm not going to be in there very long. because there's no value being brought. Michael Larkin says, from the panel's experience, best practice would be to call to set appointments. Yes, sounds that way. If so, with who that could make a decision that could determine if there was a need or not. You know, you'd have to do the homework, and the homework could be doing online research or just showing up, not necessarily to barge in on Ed or John, but I could walk into a service drive and tell within 5 minute span who's not selling tires, who's not selling batteries, who's got too many one-line ROs. You can tell that by standing there literally for 5 minutes, and you could do the same thing in the showroom.
Yeah, and another thing too that bugs me when I do get a vendor to reach out to me, you know, they want me to almost commit to, because I'm not the decision maker, and even if I were, I wouldn't pull the trigger to sign a contract and make a decision without including the dealer, my partner, you know, the parts manager. If it's a solution for my department, who also interacts with parts, and you know, I want other people's input. So right out of the gate, sometimes a vendor will say, make sure to have the decision maker there. Who's the decision maker? You know, and I've had some people press on that. And I know if they're going down that route, then, you know, they're trying to get a contract signed right out of the gate. They're not trying to understand my business or understand my need.
That's almost like the old sales, if I could, would you, to the customer.
Yeah.
And one thing I want to add is I know that they asked, and all the vendors ask me, hey, what works, right? Is it email? Is it calling? Is it setting up the appointment? Is it going to the dealer? Is it the online marketing? Is it the conferences? Listen, it all works, right? You never know what time a client is looking for document scanning. It's unbelievable. I have one of my biggest dealer groups. I was contacted at 2 a.m. The fixed ops, the VP of fixed ops was online at 2 a.m. and found our website and sent an email, and we responded the next day. He wouldn't be a guy that I would have been able to approach through a phone call because he's super busy and he's getting 10 phone calls from vendors every day. So what works? Everything works. LinkedIn, right. Facebook, YouTube. You never know when someone is watching the video and on LinkedIn, and here you are putting a post, or you got that email after 10 times, or that phone call. So everything works.
Yeah.
What I learned is that everybody's always watching. They may not say anything, they may not comment, but everybody's watching. When we were in Vegas at NADA, and I'm live streaming, I live streamed the Fixed Ops Roundtable, and I'm live streaming on the convention floor at NADA. I called on a dealer I hadn't been to in quite some time in Massachusetts, a Volvo store. And the guy, I hadn't talked to him in a while, wasn't out a customer, but I was coming through the area. I wanted to just stop in to say hi to him. He said, well, what are you doing here? I thought you were in Vegas. Haven't talked to the guy in quite some time, but he knew I was live streaming in Vegas. So everybody's watching. And to Caesar's point, you never know what's going to work. So right? You want a consistent message across all different channels.
Yeah.
Let's see. Jeff Daniel, did I read this one? Research the dealership or business before you get there. As a vendor, don't show up in my business and know nothing about what we do or who we are. I've heard the words so many times. These guys just don't know what we do. Yeah. Greg Dudley, everything starts with a needs analysis. I like to call it discovery, but yes, absolutely. Without that, you have nothing. You're just another part of the noise. And David Allen Wood says, I always prefer to email me your pitch. If you have something worth my while, it should sell itself, and I would call without question and a demo. Someone talking me up about it, I lose interest. I want to see and research it. Jared Kalfas, before requesting an appointment, get to know your prospect, do research on them, their competition, etc. Get educated. Once they're asked the question, what are the dealer's challenges, hot buttons, panic points, or pain points? Sometimes a pain point can be a panic point, especially if somebody's contacting you at 2 in the morning, right, Steve? Conduct a needs analysis. Can your solution help to reduce these problems? When you are ready to propose, ensure your solution and offer is a win-win. Absolutely. If both sides win, then the more inclined to go with it. And Paul Machine says, when working with many of my partner accounts, we uncover multiple dealers that are paying multiple solutions for the same process with different technology providers. How true is that? You guys ever see any overlapping products, Ed?
Every single month, I have bills that come in from vendors that I don't even deal with. They chat with you. You get whatever else that doesn't work out. You send them down the road. The next month, they send you a bill. And more times than not, I don't know how many dealers do this, but more times than not, that bill gets paid. We keep a running list that if they're not on this list, they don't get paid. So if we hire a new vendor, they go on that list. If they don't, they don't. But they will send bills over and over again. So a lot of times you're paying for multiple things and not even getting the service.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I guess they count on, I don't know, maybe they count on turnover. You know, that people don't necessarily know, oh yeah, it's a bill, so we have to pay it. David Allen Wood says, as being on the vendor side, I quit vendor side because the companies I worked for wanted me to make cold calls all day. Come on, David. There's nothing like the smell of rejection in the morning. You never live until you've been thrown out of a store. Now, cold calling, you know, it's a challenge, and it's not for the faint of heart. You got to have a really, really thick skin. I don't think it works quite as well, but guess what? Deals are won that way. A lot of deals are won.
One of the most frustrating things for me when I was doing it, obviously I was hustling some fixed ops solutions, is you know, I'm going in trying to convince a service director, a fixed ops guy, or a dealer that they have a need and I have a solution for that need. And what's frustrating is when you get to those guys that, you know, like for example, we all know that a dealer struggles with communicating with customers in fixed ops. We know that that's something that is typically hard to master with service advisors and all the onslaught of customers that come in and through the day. So I'm selling a product for that, but getting a guy that's too prideful to admit that they struggle with that, or too ignorant to admit that they have a need for it because he doesn't recognize it. That was the most frustrating thing. When you know you have, like Caesar, he has a product that every dealer that's not already scanning needs to have. And for a dealer to say, no, I don't need that, that's frustrating.
You know, what's funny about Caesar's product is that, you know, there is a definite need. If they don't have it, they need it, right? But how many times you hear, oh yeah, you know, we could just reprint that RO out of the DMS. Yeah, but until the warranty audit comes, where's that signature? Where are the notes? Right? You don't have any of that stuff. But it's got to be frustrating when you can't get through to that person to get them to even see that because of the other noise.
And you know, more so than not, is not the fixed ops guy or the service manager is taking it up to the controller or to the general manager. Unfortunately, sometimes these guys are so disconnected from fixed ops, which is unbelievable to me, how any GM or controller could be disconnected from fixed ops. And I have dozens of fixed ops directors or even managers that want our system, but the GM doesn't see the value or the controller, and it's mind numbing sometimes, seeing how much paperwork out there, and it's just insane.
It costs them money ultimately. Yeah. It costs them more money to not have it than it costs them to have it.
The cost, it's very difficult to quantify how much money is lost because of the time wasted. But if you have a service advisor or a tech that's looking for a repair order, it has to stop the work, has to make a phone call. The file clerk is doing something else. You got to wait for that. You could take 3, 4, 5 hours just to find a repair order or not.
Right.
And forget about
a percentage is not found. A certain percentage of the repair orders are just not found.
Right. Ironically, the longer something's a pain point in a dealership, again, ironically, the more it becomes an accepted practice.
Right.
That's just the way it is.
Exactly. You know, and the like in my case, I have to employ somebody that's all she does all day is stow away tickets all day. And, you know, God forbid, like we got to dig one out and try to find it. I'm trying to find one from a week ago now. We can't find the folder, you know, and the time that gets wasted with that, more so when a technician, you know, when we have to deal with a parts warranty issue because the part was just replaced, or the, you know, the warranty administrator needs to see notes that was on a previous RO, man, it just a time waster, you know. And we're holding up the advisor, we're holding up the job, we're inconveniencing the customer because we're trying to locate this piece of paper from 18 months ago,
Right.
to make sure that it's still within that 2-year time frame, and that this was done and that was done. It's just, yeah.
And you'll never recreate the story. You'll never, ever recreate that. If it's gone for good.
Yeah.
I joke with my wife. I tell her I never thought that I could make people happy with scanning documents. I literally go into these dealerships and advisors, technicians love me. They're like, oh, it's the scanning guy, the scan man. Because they tell me, it's like, dude, it saves so much time. Unexpectedly, the technicians love our product. The guys in the back, when they made a quote or they made a recommendation 6 months ago, they wrote it on the ticket. Customer comes back, they don't remember what it was, right? They don't remember what they wrote. Now all they have to do is type an RO number and all it comes up if it was scanned. And I can tell you how happy, like, honestly, I'm so surprised that people are so happy because we do save in time. And in this new world, man, if you can save me time, that's why Amazon is successful, right? Uber's successful.
Yeah.
If they can save us time, we'll be loyal.
Yeah, no, that's awesome stuff. Let's see, what do we got here? Jeff Daniel said, with Paul putting this format together, it will help immensely. Don't try and sell us XX product. If we love it, find our needs and don't overpromise and underdeliver. Mike Vogel says, most fixed ops technology vendors overbuild their products and need way more input from fixed ops experts. That is so true. That's why I like the products that are developed, you know, in-house, so to speak, you know, in our industry, not just somebody trying to come up with something from the outside. I was telling you guys before the show that we have this top of the line laser station where the goal of buying that item was to be able to, from our phones, from our tablets, from our laptops, to be able to send everything to that printer when we needed it. My wife and I both, we have our businesses are home office, and we print. We need our technology. But we've had problems for a couple of years, and nobody ever asked the right question. Nobody did the discovery. We kept calling tech support, kept getting frustrated. Come to find out, the wireless card in my wife's computer wasn't compatible. Okay, so I figured we'll hardwire it in. The computer company never figured that out. So now you're thinking you have a laser station, you can wirelessly print to it and have wires connected. Well, I found out afterwards you can't, because hers would work, mine would work, but never would they work together. It all depended on who logged on first, and that's the IP address that the printer locked onto, and the other person was just SOL. Well, I found this out by doing some research. I did the homework. So now I went out, bought a switch, hardwired both laptops into the printer, and voila, no more problem. All these technical gurus, experts, engineers, none of them asked the right questions. None of them were able to fix it. Am I the smartest guy in the world? No. But I got tired of hearing complaints about it, so I had to figure it out, and I got to figure it out. It's the same thing in our business in the automotive world. We need to ask all the right questions. We need to respect the time so that we can hone in on the problem. You know, Ed, John, that when we talk to you about something, you can tell in 2 minutes, we know what we're talking about. Yeah, this is a guy we should probably listen to. So cool stuff here. John, oh, that was John's answer. David Allen says, true story. Paul Machine, one must earn the right to engage in conversation. And that right definitely comes from doing your homework. Because if I come in, hi, I'm brand new. Listen, I don't know your business, but I'd love to learn. Hit the bricks. I don't have time to teach you.
Or pretending we know the business more than the dealer. That's a huge mistake.
Yeah.
The dealers know the business. Yep.
We know the technology may be better than the store because we live in it. But let's face it, if somebody's going to spend a few $1 million on a facility, they probably know that business pretty well. Jeff Daniel says, sales rep, I'll do that in 2 months. Software programmer, yeah. We hope it'll be ready in 2 years. You know, I've seen this. I'm not going to mention the company, but they were coming out with a new CRM. Literally any time now, and that any time now was, I think, 8 years later. Didn't quite work out too well for some of the parties involved. Mark Williamson says, we all are in the relationship business. The car is just a commodity in which we do that. Absolutely. I think that's Tully's famous line, isn't it, Ed? Caesar? Isn't it that? When the repeat and referral business.
Referral business, yes.
Ron Usher, after hearing this, now I'm happy I'm a tech. Jeff Sunny Beach says, hello. Hello, Jeff. How are you, man? And Jeff Daniel says, absolutely. Oh, missed one. Wow, you know, sometimes the mouse, you scroll a little bit and it goes way up there. I missed a couple of. Wow, that was fast.
But having that many comments out there tells you that you hit home tonight, Paul.
You know, I think, and I feel really kind of silly having missed so many of the questions in the beginning. You guys just threw me off track. You know, you got an eight team sitting there. It's like you're meeting the famous baseball team, and you forget about the popcorn and the hot dog. Let's see here. Lou Ramirez says, such a great conversation. Solutionaries. Ball Machine partners help dealers improve their current processes with technology so their people can create exceptional customer experiences. It is those exceptional customer experiences that keep them coming back, sending their sisters, their brothers, their uncles, the people they go to church with, the people they work with, sometimes even the people they bump into out in public that they don't know. Michael Larkin, Car Guy Coffee is in the house. That's that Lou guy from a couple of comments ago. Michael Larkin says, get you some. Oh, by the way, those guys have coffee now, if you guys follow them. And Christine says, evening, Paul and guests. Jeff Sunny Beach says, good stuff. Jeff Daniel, don't make your pitch too long or too confusing. Most of us stay pretty busy. Yeah, we just heard that. It's got to be right to the point, and it has to make sense. Michael Larkin says, I was a watcher of Paul's LinkedIn Live at NADA 2020. Seems like a decade ago. What I refer to as, that was 2020 BC that we went there, right? Before COVID.
Yes.
And my buddy Tommy Esposito says, my best way to a dealer is from being introduced by another dealer. Being referred is a solid way. If you do a great job, the dealers will introduce you to their friends. Absolutely. Just like if customers have a good experience at a store, they will refer that store to their friends. If dealers have a good experience with the vendor partners, they will refer those vendor partners to their dealer friends. Joe Brawler, welcome. Overlapping occur all the time. Dealers don't have the time to check on this. That's where the simple audit comes to mind, right? You set in place a process, quarterly, however you want to do it. We're going to audit everybody that's coming in and out of the DMS. And we need to tie that to something that we're using. If we're not using it, it's got to go. Or at least find out when the contract ends and be done with it. Christine says this is where a contract admin is key. Absolutely, but you've actually got to set the process in place and then work it. Joe Brawler says absolutely. Michael says, I see you, Joe Brawler. Now those two are going back and forth. Mark Williamson, great show, guys. Appreciate your contributions to our industry. Wow, I got caught up on the questions. Anything else you guys want to add? We went a little over, but I feel bad because I missed some of the questions earlier. So, and I own the network, so who cares, right?
You're good.
Anything from you, Ed? Any final thoughts?
I tell people all the time when they ask me, do you have a minute? I said, I have 720 of them. That's 12 hours a day, 720 minutes. How many of them do you need? If it's a vendor, It's a very short period of time that I'm going to give you. If it's my staff, I'm going to give you all the time you need, but make those minutes count.
Awesome. And John, how about you, man? You going to scare off some more people, or are you going to give them the time?
No, I'll give people some time. You know, I'm more apt to sit down with somebody if they do walk in, if I've got the time. But like it was said earlier, you gotta catch my attention real quick. If what you're saying is not making sense, we're probably not going to do business. So it's the same. I need to see value, and I need to see it quickly. But you got to be mindful of my schedule, and you're on my time when you show up.
Awesome. Steve, any final words from you, my friend?
The best folks in the dealer support community aren't selling it, they're earning it. And, we're really on the same mission with the dealer. We understand at the end of the day, it's revenue and retention, and our contributions better impact that in a positive way. And finding ways to be able to deliver that message so that the dealer can understand it and be inspired by it is what our continuing mission is.
Awesome. And Mr. Caesar Augustus.
Thank you. First of all, thanks, Paul. And yeah, we just continue to add value to dealerships, countless of dealerships around the country. This is the low-hanging fruit in the fixed stop department. There should not be any more foul rooms in America. That's my mission, to eliminate every foul room in America and continue to add value. And we offer the best scanning system in the industry. We have a 2-month free test trial, kick the tires. It makes it very easy for you guys. Any dealer that uses us, we have plenty of referrals. System works, and we take care of our clients.
Awesome. So we've seen a lot of changes happen over the years. We've seen, the advent of Priceline, right? We used to get the facts way back when. I'm shopping these 5 dealers. This is what I want. This is how I want it. Tell me what you have. Tell me what you can offer. And I'm making my decision by Thursday night. We thought it was going to come and go. It didn't come and go. We used to go out to bars years ago, right? We still go to bars. Maybe not right now after COVID hit. But we used to meet our significant others in restaurants and clubs and bars. That was the normal thing, right? Met some great people. And then life kind of shifted. Life kind of changed. And now what do? I met my wife online 10 years ago. Incredible woman. Probably, other than my kids, one of the best things I've ever done. But you know what? I was able to go online. I was able to create my profile, and she'll laugh. You guys would laugh if you know the story. There's not enough time for that. But the point is, I was able to create my profile. I was able to know what my preferences were, know what my needs were, and what my wants were. And I was able to find that one that represented what I was looking for. And I knew kind of right away when that was. And at that point, I had the option to contact her. And here we are 10 years later. We used to go to malls all the time. Malls are dying. We used to drive someplace, spend hours in the car to get there. We'd have to park the car. I have no sense of direction. Half the time I'd lose my car. My kids will still tell you about the time we were at the Cheesecake Factory and my alarm's going off because I had to find my car that was 2 levels down in the garage. I had no clue where it was. So now we don't do that anymore. We go online, we go on Amazon, and we find what we need very easily. We know what we want to buy, right? The model has changed. We know what we want to buy. We just don't want the dance. We don't want the trouble. So we find really easy what we want. We swipe, we buy it, and in most cases, 2 days later, it's here. So we're constantly evolving. The paradigm shift is here. So with that, I want to thank my guests for being on the show and sharing. I want to thank everybody out there for watching. If you see value in tonight's broadcast, please share it in your automotive community. Might help one person. And if one person is all we help, that was worth the time. So I really appreciate you guys tuning in. Thanks for supporting the show. And we will see you next week on Sunday Night Live. Have an awesome week coming up. Make it successful.